down all governmental facilities for the public health and safety, so I'm not sure if that's why we've closed for public health and safety. Out of abundance of caution, I can see why we can be a little more strict than what the state is saying, but I don't know,
I know. I'm not saying it's a good idea or a bad idea to keep it closed. What I'm saying is if we're going to keep that closed, but yet we're not gonna mandate that employees are wearing the masks inside the building, and to me, it seems like there's a disconnect there.
Sure.
If it's severe enough for one, it should be severe enough for the other.
for both sides, because we're protecting our workers as well as protecting our citizens of Holsby. Absolutely. I thought maybe there might be some discussion about the notification of your PCP, your primary care provider, if you are having signs or symptoms of COVID. And the reason being is taking a home COVID test and showing up positive is not sufficient to say that you're positive for COVID, because the specificity of that home test is great for screening, but it's not always accurate. And so that's why it's important to have that communication with your doctor, primary care provider, and have them order a PCR test, which is the gold standard for COVID testing, as well as directing what care once you test positive or negative for it. Now, if you are positive for it, there may be treatments for you or not. Maybe it's over-the-counter medication. But we get back to what is important is that communication between having been to your provider or talked to your provider over the phone and what their recommendations are going forward. Because the next step of this is all about quarantine and how do I quarantine.
Gary, let me say something here. We closed City Hall to basically through traffic. And that was our attempt to provide a safe work environment for our employees, to provide so we wouldn't be exposing our employees and the general public to this COVID. Did we follow it exactly 100% by what the CDC guidelines are? Unfortunately, no, we didn't. But I think we've done a pretty good job. The safety of our employees as well as the general public was utmost in our consideration and what we have done. Could we do it better? We can always do something better. There were some other reasons that, and I've got most of those answers now. Most of our employees are covered by a collective bargaining agreement. I didn't want to go down the road and cross the line on mandatory subjects of bargaining, but I'm sure that we will work through it all.
I'm sorry, is it about mandatory what?
Mandatory subjects of bargaining. So,
I was under the impression that we had gotten from our attorney on it, other attorneys there, was that, that if, matter of fact, the line I got was, that says this, for example, basically anything that is not mandated by the state or federal government is a mandatory subject of bargaining. For example, the state says everyone has to wear a mask indoors. That is not something we have to bargain because it is a state requirement. So as I read out, there's a whole bunch of other stuff in there too, but basically what I got out of it, if there's anything else that we want to do, we would technically have to bargain for that.
sure.
So that's one of my concerns of, like for example, the administrative leave days, for example. That wasn't bargained. I understand your reasoning for doing it, and Dom, as the mayor, I respect you highly, and I'll never fault you for taking an action. When we don't have a consensus from the council, taking an action that you think is in the best interest of the city. I applaud you for that, and I appreciate that. But now that we're here at a council meeting, I think we need to talk about that a little bit, because again, it's not something that was bargained. 4.
You're correct.
And we're 2 years down the road now, 2 years further into this.
Well, if you go back 2 years, in 2020, we were mandated to provide 10 days.
Yes, we were.
21, it was, no, we didn't have to do anything. What I looked at is that if you take a look at our employees, better than a third of them have no sick leave. The other couple that come after that have 10 days, maybe I think one has a little bit more than that. I don't want people coming to work if they're feeling sick.
According to the policy,
We
they
gotta
can't.
maintain a workforce. This isn't just an office that has to be open. I have to ensure that the streets are clear with snow. I have to make sure if we have a power outage that we can keep the lights on. And we have done that. Can we continue to do that forever? Maybe we'll have to take a look at it down the road. But I think we're doing the right thing. We're keeping our employees safe, and we're keeping our city services, we're providing our city services.
Those are very good points, and I can appreciate that. I also, though, feel as a commissioner, I should have been made aware that we were not having people use their sick time for COVID days. And that probably should have been a discussion a while back now. Again, I don't want to argue whether I know that the reasoning for Jewett was pure thought, and there was nothing for you to gain out of that. So I do not fault the questioning of why, but I do think that now is the time to discuss what could be done going forward.
I agree. I think the second page lays it out pretty well. Now, if we want to go something further than that, then we could always enter into kind of a bargaining. As a matter of fact, the wording I got on that is if you wanted to bargain for something like that for COVID administrative leave days, you could put things in there where there's requirements for vaccinations or even wearing a specific type of mask. I'm not saying we need to go down that road, but what I'm saying is if we're going to be giving employees free administrative leave days, boy, I really don't want to, I don't know how else to say it, you know, but if there's people that are vaccinated versus unvaccinated, there's a disparity in the care that they've taken for themselves. And don't get me wrong, I respect anybody that wants to make their decision to not get vaccinated. I truly, truly do. But to me, when the taxpayer is paying something and there's a disparity between somebody has a more likelihood to get sick than another person, I don't think the taxpayer should expect that they have to incur that cost when there's an increase in risk. And I think having a policy allowing for sick time off of work unilaterally to everybody is not a fair practice.
Well, I disagree with you, Jason. I think off the get-go, first of all, I think everybody maybe didn't expect the high number of cases and how rapidly this was spread. You know, it's like maybe we should have been ahead of the curve. Right now, we are behind the curve. Did it cost us a little bit of money? Yes, it did. I'm not going to try to convince anyone that it didn't. What it did do, people stayed home when they had the symptoms. They followed the rules. We were able to keep our workforce intact. We were able to provide the services that are expected. At some point in time, will we have to take a look at this policy? You bet.
At what point in time is that taking time?
I want to see where it's dropping, where the cases are.
Well, I can tell you from January 14th, Friday 2 weeks ago to January 21st, 1 week's time, LaSalle County saw 1,940 new cases, plus 12 deaths in 1 week's time. Oglesby alone saw an increase of 122 cases. It's not dropping. And I don't know that we protected anybody.
We had a one
Let
third.
me ask you this, Gary. By imposing that people won't get paid, how is that gonna help us to provide city services?
I'm not asking them to not get paid, John. I'm asking that PTO or vacation time get used like the rest of the world. And what you've said is that, I work for a healthcare facility. We have continued to take care of patients safely. We have continued to fulfill our roles there, all the while following our rules and our guidelines, which are much more strict in healthcare than they are for the general public. Let me tell you, that's to include weekly swabbing and testing for COVID if you're unvaxxed or not fully vaccinated. And we have continued to do that very well and still use vacation time. And do some people come up short? You know, I don't know. I imagine that some people have. And I can think that that is being addressed with our administration. I know that they will be looking at those people who run out of sick time or vacation time when it comes to this. But to not expect people to be able to use sick or vacation time and then complain when we have to pay out thousands of dollars when they decide to leave here because we're paying them out their sick time. We can't have both sides of a coin there.
Yeah, I mean, let's take a look at Omicron, for example. It's supposed to be very mild, it's more easily spread. What's the difference between that and the flu? I mean, if somebody gets sick or the flu or they have food poisoning or for whatever reason they don't feel well, they have a earned benefit that they can use. I feel like this is what it's for. This is why you're in a protected work class, that you have union benefits, that you have sick days to use that for. And that's why I'm also frustrated that this is not being broadcast right now, because I truly believe that if Oglesby residents, it is now, thank goodness. Because I truly believe if residents knew, my understanding is there are certain businesses, private businesses, that might be getting 3 days because of their employer or something that worked out. But very few organizations are giving people free sick days because they're sick from COVID for whatever reason. And I think most residents would be up in arms and angry to find out that their tax money is going for a program like that.
Did I say it was gonna go on forever?
No, sir.
But you did say that drops, and I don't know that we're gonna see that ball drop anytime soon.
I believe what we should be doing is, we should be adopting this policy that states like that, and then if we need to, and if it's important to the union, we can negotiate that in a collective bargaining agreement, that we could put something in there for that. I'm not saying I know the right answer right now for it though, but I do know that it's not bargained for, and it is one of those bargain items.
I'm not opposed to taking and looking at it down the road, down the road. There's been a number of places, teachers union, private industry, that have changed and come to do this.
This is what the teachers adopted the first week of January.
I think this is what we should be adopting for now, especially that we're in close City Hall and all these other kinds of things. And then if we need to, we can negotiate or bargain for other type of items.
Plus, people who have had COVID or symptoms of COVID are looking for guidelines to follow.
For example, you highlighted this, one of the things that was recommended, again, not saying we have to do this, one of the things that's recommended, if you want to proceed with a vaccination testing mandate, the first thing to do is decide what you want it to look like. But then if you sideload it, where's it going to go? I don't know where it says it exactly, but basically it says you can bargain for if you want to give people free COVID days because they got vaccinated, for example. That is an option that you could do. That is something that we could do that would actually move the city to a safer environment, because maybe more people would get vaccinated, knowing that if they got sick, they wouldn't have sick days counted against them. I'm not saying we have to do that, but I think if we're gonna think about that, that would be a smarter thing to do. At least the city gets a higher quality of safety out of it, because right now, I don't think any of these policies that we're doing is actually making anybody more safe. And I believe that to be evident because about a week or two ago, 1/3 to 1/2 of all city employees were gone from work for some reason because of COVID. So obviously, we're not taking actions that are making safety better, is what I'm saying. But I understand you might not agree with that, but that's my thought process.
I don't agree with it, and I'll tell you why. If you come right down the line, we closed City Hall for the simple reason to eliminate, the spread. We have the driveway, that takes care of that. At some point in time, are we going to open it up? Yes, we will. I think most of this, we're getting close to filing it anyways. I'm trying to protect the employees and the citizens. And is there a point when we may have to, or is there a point when we will adopt something? I don't have a problem with that. As long as it's fair, as long as the idea behind it is to keep our employees safe, to keep our residents safe, and not just looking at dollars and cents.
Don, this is from the CDC and the IDPH, who does not look at dollars and cents where it comes to that. It is all about keeping their employees safe and the citizens safe. So I do take exception to some of the comments that have been made.
Well, you can take exception.
Well, I think that this is what we should be adopting in the meantime, and like you said, down the road, to me, down the road would be if we want to negotiate or bargain for any type of thing else. And don't get me wrong, Don, I will never fault you. If there's some kind of emergency that happens and you have to make a command decision, I will never fault you for making some kind of decision that you think is in the best interest within the city. But I think as a general policy, we need to have something.
I agree with you on that. I won't disagree with you on that.
So, if that's the case, I don't know, do we want to read this whole policy, or just what do you think we should? Because I'm ready to make a motion that we adopt this policy in the meantime. And then if there's an emergency that changes things, that's a different story. Or if we negotiate for something for different bargaining, I'm okay with that as well. But I'm ready to make a motion that we accept
I
this.
would recommend that we table it, let's go over it, and then you put the policy out at the next council meeting.
Do you have a second for tabling?
I want to dot the i's and cross the t's.
Down
I
the
don't want
fair-
to come back and.
Don, there's very few times in planet Earth that I ever disagree with you, and this right here, I think is one of them, unfortunately. So, and I hope that's not an area of contention, but,
I would like to make a motion to adopt the policy regarding COVID-19 as put forth by the Illinois Department of Public Health and the CDC guidelines for general public, issued January 4th, 2012.
and as the paper we have here written,
Yes.
I would second that.
Point of clarification, Terry.
Did I say the wrong date?
No, the second bullet point. I just think there may be a typo.
Yes, if there's, that would be my secretary.
It says,
COVID A9.
COVID-A9.
exceptions when in an office alone or when drinking and unable to maintain a social distance. I think maybe that should read able to maintain a social distance as an exception to wearing the mask.
Yeah,
As opposed to unable, it just doesn't make sense the way
Right.
it's written. You with me?
yes, I do see what you're
If
saying.
we're gonna try to follow this moving forward, I think it needs to be clear.
And page 2 is not COVID A9, it is COVID-19.
I will second with
Those changes.
Curran,
Aye.
Biaski,
Aye.
Rivara.
No. Whole business.
Just a couple things. I kind of put it out, I guess, when we did the electric thing. There will be quite a bit of, items probably this year for maintenance that we're gonna have be done. I think I put out last, meeting that we're meeting and reevaluating all the streets. I found out that there is more motor fuel tax money than we had in previous years. So we should be able to get some more street maintenance done. But this project that we're looking to do for Clark Street is really just the tip of the iceberg. There's gonna be a lot of infrastructure items that's gonna be worked on through electric, streets, water, sewer lines, a lot of things coming down the pipe.
I did have two other. At the Melick sub, did we have an accident out there? And
There was, correct. Yes, sir. There was somebody, we assumed that somebody was trying to turn a semi around and they backed into the fence at the Malice, so. No equipment was damaged though except the fence, so we have a temporary fence up until we're gonna be able to get a permanent fence.
gonna put some cement blocks out there?
Yes, I'm down.
Public comments? Commissioner reports.
Let's see, through the ambulance department, in the month of December, they had 70 call-outs, with 22 of those being transfers. For fire, they saw 16, which is a little bit above their average, or a total of 187 for the year 2021. In the police department, they did see 31 case reports. They too had a little bit of an accident with a truck, but I don't know that I saw the final estimate. You haven't either, okay. But no one was hurt. And then, last but certainly not least, Sergeant Valley was chosen to receive the Officer of the Month. This last Thursday, we had a meeting with Republic to go over some issues or customer service complaints that have been coming through. We did put together a plan wherein we're going to be having a different logging system, a call-in system, and then a review of them on a weekly basis. So we hope to see quicker turnaround and resolution for those outstanding items.
What we have, is
Street department, I'd like to thank everybody for helping with the parking off street for snow removal. Granted, there has been a few that have been out there and make it a little bit challenging, but for the most part, it's been relatively easy and smooth to get the streets cleared, so please keep it up, thank you.
I just got a few things, remind everybody that the IMA scholarship, there are 4 $1,000 scholarships that are available. If you need information how to apply, please contact City Hall. Second feed, I have talked with Kevin Gaten from the IMEA. We're moving that along. Unfortunately, Ameren took the position that not only we have to sign for it to get this thing squared away, that the city has to. They notified us this week that they're gonna come and take a look to repair the road by Lanai Bank. And that's all I have for that. For Mayor's report. Number 27, closed session. 5 ILCS 120/2 (C) (1) the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a specific employees of the public body or legal counsel of the public body, including your testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance of the Act. 5 ILCS 120/2 C 5. The purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired. Need a motion and second.
I will make that motion.
Second.
Curran,
Aye.
Mieski,
Aye.
Rivara.
Aye.
I think what that paperwork does is allow